And why is it that we know stories like those of the Hatfields and the McCoys? And why can't that John and Kate just get things together for the sake of those 8? You know, the Apostle Paul once wrote that there was a whole lot of good that he wanted to do, but didn't. And there was a lot of bad that he didn't want to do, but did. You know, why was that? Why is his story our story? It's called sin. That's a word we hear about so much in church that I think perhaps it's lost a little bit of its bite. Talk about sin doesn't seem to have much of an effect on people. It's certainly not something that most people see a need for healing from. We pray in the Lord's Prayer every week in this church. We'll do it in just a little bit. Lead us not into temptation. And I just have to ask, maybe you have to ask yourself, do we always mean it? I run across very, very few people, and that includes many who call themselves Christians, who seem to concern themselves very much with what it means to be holy like God is holy. And so today we're continuing this series called His Story. If you haven't been around for it, this is an opportunity for us to be taking a look at the Bible and seeing how it's not just a collection of parts, but rather one single story meant to tell us not so much about us, but about God. And today we're looking at sin and how the world's changed because of it and how we're changed and what God has done about it. Sin is the antagonist in this story. Everything that was once so very good at the creation has become stained, and that includes all of us. When Adam and Eve rebelled against God in the garden, they became infected with the disease that the Bible tells us is now passed down to every single one of their descendants in the human race. It is hardwired into us. We are born with it. Now, whether you believe that or not is going to ultimately determine what it is that you believe about God and even your need for Him. So we are going to look at sin today, even though I know it's true. It's not pleasant to hear about. And some of us have this notion about church that we should never come and be made to squirm or feel uncomfortable. But don't fear that. Because if you do, it'll mean more when you hear about this promise of what God is going to do about this sin. His story starts so good at creation, but paradise is lost. And so God comes and inserts Himself into the story to recreate the broken world and ultimately to recreate us. Now, here's the thing. If you don't look at sin dwelling in each of us as the root of the world's problems, then you are stuck looking for something else to be that cause. And so the Hatfields, they blame the McCoys, and the McCoys say it's the Hatfields' fault. And John has dug up a whole lot of dirt on Kate, and Kate slings it right back. None of them look at themselves, it seems, and asks, am I the problem? When we don't realize what the real problem is, there's no chance of finding the real solution. And that happens in many facets of life. Some of you who come to Bible classes have heard me kind of toss out some ideas regarding public school systems, and especially the Detroit public schools, because they're in the news a lot, and they face a lot of criticism. Their students are underachieving and drop out at high rates. There's too much violence, and so they need fixing. Now, I don't purport to be an expert on all of this, but I hear a little bit of talk about how it is that these schools can be fixed. It's said that you got to put more money into them, you got to hire better teachers, you got to clean them up. Now, I suppose none of that would hurt. But I wonder if the greater problem isn't being addressed. You see, maybe the solution isn't just fixing the infrastructure of the schools, because maybe that's not the greater problem. Could it be that what needs greater fixing is the family? Why don't we get men to honor their responsibilities as leaders and fathers and husbands? Why don't we get parents to step up and discipline their children in love? How about they seek to use that school as a partner in their child's education and not the sole party responsible for raising those kids? Again, I'm no expert, but it seems to me that that would make schools stronger. But this is the thing, it's so hard for people to be honest with themselves. It is so much easier to just blame someone else, but that does not solve a thing. You know, the same thing could be said to be true for churches. In many, many churches, at times, they fail to live up to people's expectations. A church community becomes stronger, though, when the people who make up that community, you and me, become stronger in our faith. We so easily see the flaws that dwell in everything and in everyone else when we forget that it takes us personally striving to be holy as God is holy to make relationships work. The way to a stronger church is not to expect perfection. The problem is not that we are not perfect, and the solution isn't to be perfect, because it's impossible because of our condition. It's choosing to see each other in the way that Jesus has chosen to see us, as